Mark Sanders is an All-American blood donor. He was a loyal Ponca City platelet donor turned drive coordinator who organizes our largest collection event in Kay County every year. Mark is undeniably the biggest non-paid OBI advocate that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Please help me welcome Mr. Mark Sanders.
He's got one up there.
Good evening, and Jesse, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Sometimes I think you talk me up a lot bigger than I can follow. So, anyways, I'd like you all to know I've got my speech written down here. For those of you who know me know that's a good thing. I tend to stray off topic. This will keep me on topic, and we will get out of here before midnight, I promise. So, when Jesse first texted me to ask me to speak at this event, I was initially hesitant. I've been honored here in the past, including being ambushed at this very event about 5 or 6 years ago. Sometimes the attention can get embarrassing. Now, I'll admit, I love speaking publicly on behalf of OBI. I love telling people how important blood donation is and how we are literally saving lives. But those of you in this room, you already know these things. That's nothing new to you. So, for myself, I enjoy coming to this event, and I get inspiration here. So, I like to hear other blood recipient stories, other blood donor stories, and it inspires me for the work that I do. When I was asked to speak at this event, I didn't think I would have much to offer those of you in this room. But a text from Jesse talking about the different ways I have been involved with OBI over the years made me realize that maybe I do. Since I come to this event for inspiration, maybe the story of the things I have done in the past with OBI can inspire others. That's why I'm standing before you today. So if you will be patient with me for a minute, let me take you back a few years to my childhood. That is a lot of hair. Maybe it was more than a few years ago. Good. So anyways, I was a very lucky child. I grew up with a father and some uncles who had a passion for fishing. And since I was born a lot later in my father's life, he had plenty of time to instill me with that same passion. My best memories as a child and a teenager involved spending months camping at the lake every summer, fishing and water skiing every day. Dad retired just before my 14th birthday. And the next few years we would spend the entire summer at the lake from Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's where you could find me. My dad was smart as a whip about the work too. He had a way of making all the hard work seem something I should be excited to learn. You know, hey son, you want to learn how to drive a boat? Hey son, you want to learn how to pull the trot line? Hey son, you want to learn how to clean fish? Well, tell you what, I will admit I did the same thing with my family. So my dad was very particular in how he cleaned his fish. And I was raised hearing compliments on his fish that it tasted so much better than anyone else's. He raised me to clean fish the same way, and I have heard the same compliments about my fish as an adult. Obviously, an expert fisherman like my dad could fill a freezer in a hurry, but he didn't know what to do with the fish once he had filled the freezer. So we began a habit of donating the fish to the little country church that we were members of. We'd have a fish fry every couple of months in church. A tip for any pastors or clergy in the office: if you want to increase your Sunday morning attendance, have a fish fry afterwards. It works. So I didn't understand at the time about blood donation when I was growing up. But donating, fishing and donating that fish was stuck in my memory. At 19, I joined the U.S. Navy, spending most of my 4 years on a ship home ported in Japan. Go Navy!
Beat Army!
Thank you. That's my wife. That's my wife. Thank you, babe. Several times while I was in Japan, the base hospital held a blood drive when they were short on product. I donated when I was asked to, strictly because in the military you just do what you're asked to do. I still didn't understand about donating blood. When I was released from the service, I came right back home to Oklahoma. I resumed camping and fishing as much as I could around my work schedule. I met my wonderful wife and my kids, and set about raising my new family. Obviously, I took them fishing. I mean, that's kind of what I do. So, my wife took to it, well, like a fish to water. I sometimes wonder if she would have run screaming in horror if she had realized just how serious the fishing was to become in our life. The job I had when I met my wife held blood drives every 56 days, alternating between OBI and another blood bank. I started donating every time we held a drive because, well, honestly, it was an hour off work and I got me some cookies. And I love cookies. So, I still didn't understand. I vaguely knew I was helping some people, but honestly, it was about me. I was in it to goof off, and I was in it to get some cookies. Eventually, my job quit holding those blood drives at work, and instead, every 56 days, asked us to go down to the center and donate. We would receive a $5 Brahms gift card as a reward. Now, most Oklahomans love Brahms, and I am no exception. So I started going down to the center to donate. Now I was getting cookies and a milkshake. Did I mention really like cookies? So as most of you know, when you become a regular blood donor with OBI, it's just a matter of time until they ask you to consider donating on a machine, whether it be for red blood cells or platelets or something else. They tested my blood levels and discovered that I had high platelet levels. They asked me if I would consider donating on a machine. I casually asked, what are platelets used for? The answer I got was that a lot of platelets are used for cancer patients and premature babies.
I didn't know that.
I'm going to repeat that for a minute. Cancer patients and premature babies. That's when I began to understand. Less than a year before, I had lost my father to mesothelioma, which of course is a type of cancer. Now, donating blood, donating platelets would be a way to help people like my father. So I began donating blood, donating platelets every 2 weeks at the OBI in Ponca, skipping only a couple of times a year because a guy has to go fishing now and then. So I began and I kept going and doing that. A couple of years later, while I was sitting there waiting to donate, one day I heard the office staff talking about how they had a beef day and they had a pork day that covered the Memorial Day and Labor Day holidays, but they wished they had something for Independence Day. My memories of my childhood and the fishing came back, and I casually suggested a fish fry. I'm still not sure all these years later, but somehow that turned into me cooking fish. If my memory serves correct, the first year we had 34 donors for that fish fry. The center normally averaged about 25 donors a day, so it wasn't a huge difference. The second year we had around 50 donors. But at one of those first couple of years, I was cooking out in front of the building, and I was introduced to a little girl about 7 or 8 years old. And she stood there in her wide-brimmed hat, protecting her bare head and shoulders from the sun. And she thanked me for being a platelet donor. You see, she had leukemia. I'm going to talk about a wake-up call. I stood there and I fought back tears, and I asked that little girl if I could have a hug. She thankfully gave me one, because I don't know if I could live without it. On that day, everything changed. This was no longer something I was doing for cookies or for a milkshake. This was doing something I was now doing because I had met a sweet little girl who thanked me for being a platelet donor. It wasn't about me any longer. I stand here almost 15 years later and I still get emotional thinking about that. I wish I had thought at the time that me and my wife had managed to get some contact information from her mother, because I've never been able to know how her story ended. But at that point, I began to realize this was serious. And I began to seriously think about how to get other people involved in donating blood. I think the employees at the OBI in Ponca could sense the change in me. They started teaching me more in depth about platelet donation and how my concentrated platelets were much more valuable than platelets to patients. They also began introducing me to select whole blood donors while I was donating on my machine, and encouraged me to visit with these whole blood donors about considering machine donations. So I want to throw out a thank you to Diane, Crystal, Misty, Carrie, Carla, and others at OBI for getting me started on the donor recruitment side of OBI. As our annual fish fry blood drive has grown over the years, from 34 donors the first year to a high of 182, I have met several other recipients along the way. I was inducted into the National Blood Donor Hall of Fame in 2010, and I was interviewed by a couple of newspapers. I was also asked to speak about it on the radio the morning of my induction. That began what has now been over a decade of using the radio stations to help raise awareness for our fish fry blood drive and also for other blood drives being held throughout the year. Excuse me. When I speak publicly about OBI, I try to keep my focus on the mission. Blood donations save lives. That's what we're here to talk about. That's what I go on the radio to talk about. I am constantly trying to think about how to get others involved in blood donation. Something I haven't told many people, and it will surprise a lot of people in this room, that the growing magnitude of the fish fry began to weigh on me several years back. And I began to seriously consider taking a year off from the fish fry. But that all changed one January day in 2017. That was the day my daughter Erin delivered to me the precious gift of my first grandchild. After a difficult labor, the doctor finally had to do a C-section. And that day, my daughter required 2 units of red blood cells.
3 units.
As a prolific blood donor, and the organizer of an event that by that time had over 1,000 blood donations, that day I could do nothing to help my daughter. She was saved by doctors, she was saved by nurses, and she was saved by blood that was already on that shelf when she needed it, due to donors like you. And for that, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Donors like you gave me back my daughter. After that, there won't be any more talk about taking a year off. Several years ago, Jesse asked me to introduce me to Ben Evans, who is somewhere out here. I saw him earlier today. Ben is a gentleman from my hometown who took 42 units of blood. Ben has done absolutely amazing work with OBI since then, promoting the need for blood products. He has been kind enough to be on air with me several times during my radio interviews as a living, breathing example of why blood donation is so important. I never get tired of hearing Ben's story. I hope you guys get to hear it yourself. He has done tireless work with OBI since then. I still think Jessie knew exactly what she was doing introducing me to Ben on that day, and I gotta say thanks, Jessie. That was great. A couple of years ago, the Baby Shark Challenge was out. Now, I don't do stuff like that. I don't, I ignore it. However, that at the time was my granddaughter's favorite song. And so I did it. You know, it's amazing what we'll do for our grandkids. At the end of that video, I included a 1-minute promotional plug for OBI explaining that it does not take a shark to take a bite out of the blood supply. While my video didn't go viral, it was viewed by several thousand people. A lady from Newkirk commented on the video and said that blood donors like me had saved her son's life. I immediately opened a dialogue with this lady, and she explained to me that her son had been born premature and with medical issues. Excuse me. She was nice enough to let me use her story during radio interviews. She was nice enough to come to a blood drive shortly after that with me, and we did a Facebook Live video telling her story to the world. She even, this year, came out to the fish drive, blood drive that we hold every year, and she got to tell her son's story on the air live with the radio station, and I think she had an impact along with a lot of people. He is a cute kid, he is fully healthy, and he is alive because of the people in this room, people like you. Another way that I try to promote blood donation is through my wife and I's Christmas display. We have one of those animated Christmas displays where the lights dance to the music. Several times I have had a promotional voiceover with me and a personality from the radio station talking about the need for blood and promoting a couple of specific blood drives in Kay County. Today, the mission still continues. A little over a month ago, we held our 15th annual All-American Fish Fry Blood Drive, and we had the second highest amount of donors we have ever had for this event. Over the last 15 years, we've had over 1,700 blood donors, and combined with my personal blood donations, that's well over 5,000 lives that we have affected. We've even had a few celebrities attend the fish fry. Some of you might recognize these guys from the TV series Mudcats. They were great enough to come out and sign t-shirts for a day during our blood drive. Now, obviously, I cannot do all this work myself. I have a wonderful crew, some of whom are sitting at the table over here in the corner, and my wife will probably kill me, but I'm going to do some introductions real quick. My wonderful wife of 23, we've been together 23 years, and she has been at my side through all the blood drives and all the other crazy stuff I get us into. Sitting next to her is my daughter, and she has been much help with the blood drives over the years. And and by the way, just want to remind everybody at this table is a blood donor. Next to her, my best friend's daughter Rebecca, and she calls me Uncle Mark, and she's more like my female best friend. She comes and helps with everything I get into, whether it be Christmas lights, blood drives, or whatever. And even with all the work, she says she's taking over the fish drives one year. She's going to do the blood drives when I get too old and retire. Next to her, I've got my Uncle Dennis and Aunt Marilyn. And they're important because, remember earlier I said that my son now got involved in cooking. I didn't know how to cook fish, honestly. My Aunt Marilyn worked for the school system for many years, and she came down and she taught me all about food safety and how to prepare the fish for people with legs. So that's just a small portion. Thank you. That is just a small portion of the crew that helps me every year. From catching and cleaning the fish to preparing it before the blood drive, through cooking and serving it during the blood drive and cleaning up afterwards. I have more help than any of you can ever imagine. And just thank you guys so much. Between this and other charity fish fries that I also do, it has finally become more fish than I can catch by myself with the work schedule I have. So, a couple of fishing tournaments have stepped forward and they donate the fish they catch to me every year at one of their tournaments. That way I stay supplied for my charities. Now I want you to remember that point for a minute, because it's going to be very important here in just a minute. That brings us back to the question, why am I speaking to you today? It's not because I want your congratulations. It's not because I want your thank you. It's because I want to tell you that if a poor redneck like me simply had too much fish in his freezer, can help save up to 5,000 lives and counting, maybe you could find a way to do a little more also. Do you have a special skill or a hobby, such as mine, that could benefit in some way? Do you smoke brisket or cook tacos better than anybody on your block? If I can get fish donated to help me, maybe we can get a group or a store to donate your necessary supplies. Are you a member of a group or a club that could hold a blood drive? Maybe your church or a place of work. Do you perhaps own or manage a business that could donate product or a gift card as a reward to donors? Do you coordinate or engineer another event that could be done in conjunction with a blood drive? Maybe a car show or something like that. If you have a lot of followers on social media, you can certainly broadcast live from a blood drive speaking about the importance of blood donation, trying to get donors to come out. If you're crazy like me, you could do the next Ice Bucket Challenge with Baby Shark video. Use it to promote blood drives the way I did. Certainly, if you are a blood recipient out there, you can follow Ben's example and help promote the mission and encourage people to donate blood and save lives. That's me donating platelets. My two sisters and my daughter all donated blood on one particular day a few years back in Pompey. That's the last suggestion I have for you on how to get others involved. It would be to talk to your own family. I strongly encourage you to talk to your kids, your grandkids, siblings, about how they can begin a lifetime of saving lives. Every single person in this room is here because one way or another, you already know the importance of blood donation. I'm not here to teach you that. Instead, I'm here asking you to be creative and find a way to recruit and involve others in this life-saving mission. As existing blood donors who are older and develop medical issues or quit donating for other reasons, the recruitment of new donors is critical. If each person in this room could recruit just 1 or 2 no donors to be regulars, we could have an amazing impact. So I'm asking you for the following. This evening, tonight, on your drive home tonight, I want you to talk about what you could possibly do with your wife or spouse or significant other. Talk about it with your children. Talk about it with your friends. Talk about it with your coworkers. If you can't think of any great ideas, come talk to these employees from OBI, because some of these people have great ideas on how to get people involved. Do it for people like Ben, who took 42 units of blood. Do it for that cute little boy that donor saved his life when he was born. Do it for that sweet girl fighting leukemia. Do it for people like my daughter, because I will forever be grateful to people like you for saving her life. I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and if you are eligible to donate next year on June 24th, I want you to come see me in Ponca City, and I'm going to serve you up an excellent catfish meal. Bring a friend, bring 2 friends, I don't care, bring 20. Let's save some lives together. Thank you.
Was I right when I said we should just probably put him on the payroll by now? Volunteer services is